Obviously, I'm a person of color.
It is very, very different.
But you're an able-bodied white man.
I don't agree that my kid needs to
It's
see
easy for you to
themselves.
say that, though, as a white man.
He's telling children there's something wrong with them because they like to play with different toys or like the color pink is abuse.
If I am an African-American mother of a young gay man, I don't have a problem with him reading this book.
Oh my gosh.
It's, excuse me.
It's insulting to say that any black parent with a gay child would be okay with their child reading that book.
You're being absolutely ridiculous.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be watching, quite frankly, an outrageous debate from the Free Press between Tiffany from Mums for Liberty and a few others on the side of sanity versus a bunch of leftists on the side of grooming and sexual indoctrination of children. This one starts off about race, but then as the debate goes on, they get into the debate about the sexual books. And it's just honestly jaw-dropping that the leftists on the panel even publicly take this position. And honestly, defending this sick, perverted literature, in my view, is such an indefensible position that it really annoys me that our culture is so far gone that we even have these sorts of debates, or we even see this as a necessary topic, and that we don't instead just excommunicate these groomers from polite society. But we'll cover it anyway. So let's get into the first bit about race.
Can you give us some examples of some of the things that you saw happening at Brearley that you thought that prompted you to speak up about this?
I looked at the curriculum of what the curriculum looked like in the last year before the George Floyd summer in 2019 to 20, and what it looked like today, or the most recent one I had, and it's dramatically different. He looked at 10th grade, which was American history and American literature. The books they're reading are completely different. They've gotten rid of most of Mark Twain and F. Scott Fitzgerald and replaced it with sort of the identity politics-oriented multicultural books.
Well, like what? I mean, is it just writers who aren't white, or what books?
Well, right. I don't remember the names off the top of my head. It was a little while ago. But it's oppression-oriented ideology. These are not the books of great literature anymore, what it had been. You know, the history curriculum, if you looked at American history, 10th grade, American history, in 2019-20, the curriculum says, you know, looking at the founding of America, using source documents, et cetera. If you look at it, what it says now, it's looking at the foundings of America through the lens of anti-racist ideology or something like that. It's completely different.
And what was the demographic makeup of your school?
You know, it was what I'll call optically diverse. You know, it's. I mean, they focus an enormous amount on, you know, diversity. Probably what they'll call 40% people of color, if I'm guessing, something of that. Probably more now than it was then, something like that. That's my guess.
So my question is for everyone. I guess two questions. One is what Andrew is talking about, something that the rest of you have seen in other schools, and is what Andrew is talking about something that is positive as opposed to insidious? Iman, you've taken a whole bunch of notes. What do you want to share with the class?
Oh, so interesting. I'm trying to listen to everyone's point of view. Obviously, I'm a person of color, so this kind of hits home for me, of course. Thinking about the anti-racist ideology, I don't think anyone should be forced into signing a pledge of anything that they have to teach at home. I absolutely do not believe that, but I definitely understand why a conversation has to be had about having a more inclusive and holistic education system. Families should all have input on that, absolutely. I think that we should have a plethora of different, who are the authors of the books that we're reading. We should have a canon that is progressive and inclusive. That's the world that we live in today. Not taking away from Mark Twain, not taking away from any of the amazing historical canon that we've read. Shakespeare, I loved Shakespeare. Please don't ever stop teaching Shakespeare in schools. But I also really, really love some amazing authors that have come around today that look a little bit more like me. I can't have my child in a school where he cannot see himself in that. Or I walk into a classroom and there's not one book that has an author that is black.
Can I say, what you just described is exactly what happened at our daughter's school.
Inclusion?
Meaning what?
Meaning a focus on those things. Diversity.
That's horrible.
It is. But now we're talking ideologically.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just want to say, I want to let others, but so, and I understand where you're coming from, obviously, having kind of spent the last 3.5 years trying to understand what you just said, where it came from. And I understand how most people view these words, diversity, inclusion, equity, obviously DEI, which we've all become so familiar with, as good words, because in the colloquial meaning of the words. They mostly, equity we can talk about, but diversity and inclusion are good things. But there is an ideology behind them that, again, is very, very different.
But you're an able-bodied white man.
Are you arguing against the inclusion of non-white, non-male authors in schools? I mean, which part of this
I'm arguing
feels like...
against the books of the great books, which mostly were written by white males. I'm not, and not all of them. Not all of them.
That's interesting. I think that those books, and I'm sorry.
Because if you have an unlimited, if you have an infinite amount of time in English class, read, this is where we run into trouble. Read everything. Same
Those
with
books have
history
been
class.
elevated.
Learn everything.
Those books have been elevated, though. It's not that those.
But they're
it's
not
not
as
that
good.
They're
not as good, and they have an ideology baked into most of what they're reading.
That's a very interesting concept. They're not as good because you haven't read them. I have read them.
No, they're not as good as works of literature.
If we don't know that they exist,
this is a luxury.
then we
There's
don't
a
know.
divisiveness to this that I don't agree that you need to
and
see
that's
yourself.
okay. Like,
I don't agree that my kid needs to
It's
see
easy for you to
themselves.
say that, though, as a white man.
and
Well, I
that's
have a daughter.
okay.
That doesn't
I don't
matter.
care if
But we're not
she
talking about your
doesn't
daughter.
care
Do you
if
not
she
want
reads
her to
women.
see
No,
herself?
I'm not saying I don't want.
Okay.
I'm saying focus on good education.
Okay.
And now we're getting to the, we're now getting to a much deeper level
Why
of
would you
what is
assume,
education.
Why would you assume something written by a woman or a person
No,
of
I'm not
color is
assuming.
not a good education?
If you go on the internet and Google, or maybe 10 years ago, the greatest works of literature,
And
the
that was determined
overwhelming
by...
majority are going to be written by white men. Now, maybe because women couldn't write back, it doesn't matter.
Only 17% of black children in America are reading on grade level in 4th grade. That's according to the National
maybe
Assessment
if
for
they read
Educational
more
Progress
literature
and our
looked like
nation's
that,
report
looked
card.
like that. They'd be interested.
So he's kind of trying to walk on eggshells around them a little bit, and it's just not the right tactic to take with these sorts of people, because the DEI race hustling types, no matter what you say,
And not all of them. Not all of them.
are such low resolution thinkers that they will always see everything through the prism of race. And even if you make the best point ever made, it does not matter, because they will just see you as a white man and ultimately as an oppressor. So your opinion doesn't matter. So you may as well come out guns a-blazing. But notice how quickly the anti-racism people become blatantly racist. It's almost just hilarious the way that the ideology that they espouse clashes with their rhetoric and actions. As soon as he starts to make a point, it's, oh, but you're a white man. Oh, you're an able-bodied white man.
It is very, very different.
But you're an able-bodied white man.
So, isn't your whole entire worldview about diversity? Shouldn't we be hearing the opinions of people from all different shapes, sizes, and colors? Sure. Yeah, unless you're white, of course. But the fact of the matter is that he is simply correct, and it's just the truth. Sorry if it offends you, but I'm not willing to dumb down an entire generation because you, in your lunatic brain, think that black kids will learn better if they see a black author. And I'm sure they don't even believe that, because even they would know that it's ideological garbage. I mean, as much as you try and use these kids as an ideological pawn, everybody knows that kids don't look at this sort of stuff. But just for the sake of the argument, let's have a look at some of the best authors throughout history. Who comes to mind? Leo Tolstoy,
White man.
William Shakespeare,
White man.
Ernest Hemingway,
White man.
George Orwell,
White man.
Stephen King,
White man.
C.S. Lewis,
White man.
Albert Camus,
White man.
Joseph Conrad,
White man.
Roald Dahl.
White man.
And what do all of those people have in common?
Able-bodied white man.
But if there are people who aren't white men that are amazing authors, then sure, put them in the curriculum too. I mean, Pablo Coelho comes to mind, Gabriel Garcia Martinez, but only because they are great authors. The anti-racism authors, though, however, are idiots, and their books are not worth the paper that they were printed on. Sorry, just the facts. And when it comes to intellectual pursuit, there's no room for this sort of ideology because it makes people dumber, and we don't want more dumb people. Anyways, on to the bit now about the Don't Say Gay bill. But before we get there, don't forget to smash that like button below. This sort of video is not the one that YouTube loves, guys, so any help I can get is appreciated. And also, if you do like it here, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit that notification bell and come join us in the live chats. Whenever we premiere a video, I'm always in there chatting. So hope to see you there.
We are in Florida, newly famous for the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. So we can get into this now.
That's
all right. So this is fun, yeah. So this so-called Don't Say Gay bill bans instruction.
But can we call it what its title was? It was the Parental Rights and Education.
So the Parental Rights and Education Act bans instruction in gender identity and sexual orientation in grades Pre-K through 8, and then 9 through 12, I think you can talk about it a little in high school or something like that. I thought that we'd start by looking at a piece of material that I think epitomizes what the people who support this ban are afraid of. And this is a book that has been part of the curriculum in Seattle public schools. It was recommended to school children in New York City public schools, and it's been recommended by the Human Rights Campaign for use in elementary school classrooms. So this isn't just like a random thing. This is an actual book that is part of curricula.
I Am Jazz.
This is I Am Jazz, an autobiographical picture book by Jazz Jennings, a transgender activist who began her transition when she was 5 years old.
I'm going to explain my objection, because we just had a school shooting in Georgia.
Thank you.
And the school shooter ostensibly attacked that school because he didn't feel trans rights were being respected. This is a serious topic.
It is.
What we're teaching our kids about themselves and about who they are. But it has gotten to the point now where we've had 2 school shootings over an ideology and an indoctrination of our kids into thinking there's something wrong with them.
They were born in the wrong body.
But who's making them feel that way?
Where children are being told in public school classrooms that they were born in the wrong body. Do you know that Jazz, a little boy, had his penis split open and inverted, sterilized, never have an orgasm, has to stick a dilator in to keep an open wound open? This is a child. When I was 12 years old, I didn't know that I wanted to be a mom. If you had said to me, you know, when I got my period, I have yet to meet a young girl who loves going through puberty. I didn't know that I'd want to breastfeed my children. And I had to listen to Chloe Cole, a detransitioner, sit on a stage where she said, don't know if I will ever be able to have a baby. And if I have children, I won't be able to breastfeed. And what I say to you, Ben, is this. These gender ideologues are stealing a future from girls that they don't even know that they want.
And
yet.
boys.
These are
And
children.
boys, yeah.
But right now, I'll talk about ROGD and girls, and you're right, boys too.
This is how it's happening, actually, Ben, is they're coming into media centers and libraries like we're at.
That's right.
And they're bringing adults in to read this material, and these young children are believing what's read because it's in a book.
They also believe in Santa, just to be clear.
Before this book was read, did we have trans people in the world?
There's no such thing as a transgender
Before
child.
this book was read, did we have gay people?
Yes.
There's no such thing as a transgender child.
So in my mind, I do know
And
that.
I think they're actually trans.
I'm just curious.
Would it exist if we didn't read
There was
boys?
transsexual. They changed it to transgender.
I mean,
that's part of the whole idea. No, they're different things.
Right. Okay, my point is.
We got to get to the ideology behind this if we really want to discuss it.
Transgender ideology is extremely homophobic. The majority of boys who end up going through transition or pushing a transition, if left alone to go through puberty, would turn out to be gay.
Have you heard this before?
Never. What I have heard is that the suicide attempts and the suicide rate for boys who feel like they are,
and I wonder if they
do not have the
seen
support.
And heard, it would
I
be
know,
different.
and I understand transgender. I'm sorry, you are absolutely right. Transgender, where you actually transition. I don't know how comfortable I am with really agreeing with that. But when it comes to a child who feels like they're something else and being able to kind of like wear a dress or wear heels or whatever it is, I'm not going to like.
But this is what's interesting.
Like I don't have I'm not even a part of that community for me to really have an opinion on it, to be really quite honest. But for the students who feel like they are.
Well, neither of us, we all have opinions.
They would rather die than be, you know what I mean? Because nobody is giving them a place to be seen or to be respected. That to me is a problem as well.
But what the data shows
if we're going to care about all the students, then we need to care about all the students.
We don't need to be having conversations about surgeries and puberty blockers and whatever. First off, the percentage is very, very low, right? Very low. You're talking 1%, maybe.
Skyrocketing.
Right?
You have schools in California where they have.
I'm sorry, I was right in the middle of a sentence. Thank you. So I think the conversation with the place that school psychologists the role that they play, the role that the larger school family plays, the conversation should be much more centered on how do we support the child and the family as they navigate this very complicated landscape.
What is the message you think that a child who does not conform to gender stereotypes gets from this book?
So you have a child that's experiencing mental distress. First of all, it's being introduced now in kindergarten. These are children who really, and it is being mandated in some states that this is taught.
Actually, is that in your experience? Have you seen this being in kindergarten? Do kids talk about gender?
I think that, I'll be really transparent. I think that if a child is already in a classroom that already has this mindset that this is who they are, then of course it's going to come up in conversation between kindergartners. Because the child is coming to school, we're in a public education system, we're going to have different kids that come to school. So
well,
if
as
your
opposed
kid
to
is
like
in
it
the
being
classroom-
introduced as curriculum.
I mean, we are in Florida, man.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't
no,
happen.
absolutely not.
Right.
So
But it will happen
definitely
if
not.
if
But by
yeah.
middle school, absolutely, because there's going to be kids there that are trans.
This
I'm so
has
sorry,
no
even the
place
terminology.
in our schools and public education. Our kids aren't even learning how to read. And we're telling them they've been born in the wrong body. There are 2 sexes, 0 genders, and infinite personalities. Telling children there's something wrong with them because they like to play with different toys or like the color pink is abuse.
So she is definitely the strongest out of the 3 people on the side of sanity and not grooming children in this debate, because she doesn't just try and be nice the whole time to her opponents. She treats them with the kind of scorn and contempt that they should be treated with, because this is not a debate about a trivial political matter. It's not about economics. This is about not grooming little children in schools. They are on the side of evil and insanity and should be treated as such. This book that they're talking about, I Am Jazz, is about a little boy who thinks he's a girl, and it's this wonderful experience for this little boy transitioning into the girl. Such a happy story. So great. Wow. Child transitioning. This is Indoctrination 101. This is meant to confuse the malleable brain of a child into believing that this sort of mental illness is not only acceptable, but it's a good thing. It's a happy thing. It should be encouraged. It should be aspirational. And if you do this, you're also brave like the little kid in the story. This is absolutely scandalous and should be fought with everything we have. Because the indoctrination of children in schools like this is not something that happens by chance. This has been a slow build-up over the past 60 years or so, where the cultural Marxist left has captured our institutions in the West. And it does not end with this. The logical conclusion of this ideology upon children is extremely dark and concerning. And this coordinated subversion is designed to create generations of ideologues to come. This is very serious. Children are being used as ideological weapons by these sick freaks. And if not stopped, it will go all the way to its logical conclusion. We will end up seeing schools doing away with biology altogether.
Gender-neutral uniforms plus bathrooms and pronouns according to the students' choosing. Arlington Public Schools has a new set of rules as it heads back to school.
And eventually, we will end up seeing the normalization of pedos. Because if children can consent to reading these sick books, and if they can consent to doing whatever they want with their body because they know better than their parents, then just use your imagination as to what else it leads to. So on to the next part now, where anybody who is normal and not a freak listening to this will understand that it comes crumbling down for these leftists, because they bring up a book that Tiffany happens to actually be very familiar with. Also, watch how outrageously biased the moderator is here.
These things are just inflammatory, like bright, shiny objects.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Tiffany, I swear.
What? I'm sorry.
Then let me say it for her. No, you're wrong.
Okay.
You're absolutely wrong.
Listen.
Well, where have we seen?
Wait, listen to me.
Sorry.
We have a system that's built on seat time. We've had 50 years of unfunded mandates. We have not added 1 minute to the school day, not 1 day to the school year, right? Those are the things that we can control. We cannot control how somebody views their body. That's not what we can control. What we can control is the policy that surrounds education and how we deliver it to our children.
And we're not
That's
talking
what
about,
we're here to
We're
talk
not talking about controlling how they feel about themselves or how they think.
That's
I
not
don't
what
know.
she's talking about, though.
But she just said that.
No.
She just said it.
She's not talking about controlling the feelings of students.
She said
She's
we cannot
talking
control
about-
the feeling.
We
We're
can't
not
control-
asking.
we can't-
We're not
we can
trying to
control
do
what we
that.
spend time on in the classroom and spending time on I Am Jazz when we only have one
I'm
third of
talking
American
about right
children-
here, sitting
when we
here
only
right
have
now.
one-
We have to move on to this book stuff. So, House Bill 1069, signed into law last year in Florida, among other things, establishes a process for parents to object to any school library book and requires the books be immediately reviewed or immediately removed while these objections are adjudicated. Now, Tiffany, because I know this is something that's been pushed by Moms for Liberty.
No.
Well, then clear this up. Do you think that Florida's law, or the law that I just described, which is Florida's law. Is this a good model for the rest of the country?
I think that the biggest concern really has been in Florida and other places that there didn't seem to be a process for school as to how library books, were making their way into the library, how they were being reviewed. And so I sat on a school board for 4 years. Were there books that were in the library that weren't appropriate for public school while I was on the school board? Absolutely. I think that there were books that librarians, in some cases, were shocked to see what the content was in the library books. So I think that, you have curriculum that is adopted in every school district. Parents are involved in as part of that curriculum adoption process, and that parents should absolutely have the ability to look at what the books and the materials that are in the schools, and if they have concerns about them, to go to their local school board, their elected officials, and express their concerns.
Okay, so is this law which says that if a parent objects to a book, that the book is immediately removed while it is reviewed? And I mean, is that do you feel? Do you
I think there has to be a process that's in place in order for materials to be questioned and the school board to be able to take action on that. And I just want to be clear. The mission of Moms for Liberty is to unify, educate, and empower parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. Okay. We're a parental rights organization. The book issue was something that we didn't start, but was actually brought to a lot of our moms and they were made aware of. Mm-hmm. And I do feel that parents felt they had a moral obligation to take action when they saw the graphic sexual content that was in these books.
Okay, so this bill has resulted in the removal of hundreds of books from library shelves. This includes books by Toni Morrison, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
To be clear, the school boards are the ones that are making the decision about which books are removed.
No. This law says that if a parent objects to a book, it's whisked off the shelf.
The school board is the one that makes the decision. Correct. And Ryan was a part.
Ultimately about whether we put the book back on the shelf.
Correct. Or take it away.
Or the superintendent.
I mean, parents are going to ask. Here's the thing. Parents, even on school board, you spent 24 years. Parents are going to ask a lot of questions. Some of them are going to be, things that you want flagged that you're aware of. Some of the things that parents are going to bring up, you're going to say either maybe there's nothing I can do about that, or that, this is something that's a policy in our district and we're going to continue doing it. But parents have the right to ask questions about anything that their children are being exposed to in schools, and local school boards are elected. That's why American public education is so beautiful in many ways, because across the world, parents don't have the type of representative government that we do in America. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Local control is incredibly important. Yeah.
Okay, but this law has resulted in the removal of books that I don't think any of us would call pornographic, books by Judy Blume, Jodi Picoult, Margaret Atwood. So my question is for everyone, is this law too broad?
I think it's very important to be honest about the fact that when we talk about funding and school library funding, it's minuscule. And that's something that I know that Ryan has spoken about publicly, about the fact that we should be investing in our libraries, in our schools, and we should be investing in literacy specialists to help our children to identify good books that are going to help to enhance their learning. We have standards in American public education. In Florida, we have the best standards. It's a roadmap that shows very clearly what a child should be learning in any given year. And then there's curriculum that's selected in the school that matches to those standards. And so the idea that every book that has ever been written should be in a public school library is just ridiculous. Jodi Picoult, as you spoke about, well, that's a book that you can buy in the grocery store while you're checking out your groceries. Should a book that you buy at the grocery store that's a female romance novel should taxpayer money be spent on that book and put on a library shelf? I think it's a good debate to have.
I don't see anything wrong with parents reviewing the materials that are part of the curriculum.
But it's also what parents.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
So it's very selective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very selective. I'll give you an example. We had a situation in our district about one particular book, All Boys Aren't Blue. And it's a story about a young African.
Who's a boy in the book?
Okay, keep going.
Who's a minor?
I just said that.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute.
African-American boy, man.
Gotcha, bitch.
A young boy, it's kind of his coming of age, right? He loses his virginity when he's in college, later in life. He was molested by his cousin when he was younger, I think 12 or something like that.
He was anally by an adult family member.
Okay,
Tiffany,
and this is something.
And this happens.
Keep going.
And so I read the book from cover to cover because we had a school board member that actually filed criminal charges against our superintendent and wanted the superintendent arrested. Ridiculous, right? When I say it's up to certain parents, if I am an African-American mother, of a young gay man. I don't have a problem with him reading this book.
Oh my gosh.
It's, excuse me, molestation happens.
We should do a lot better than throw a library book on a shelf.
And let me tell you something.
Is this not the point
Judy Blume's Forever is raunchier than that book.
Well, Judy Blume's been pulled from shelves
I know, right? And we're of that, some of us are of that generation of Judy Blume. But Forever was a pretty naughty book.
I mean, these are books that describe the reality of teenage sexuality, and that is a thing that makes some parents very uncomfortable.
And I'm just saying that if parents want to opt out, right, Tiffany, if you don't want your child to read that book, then we have a process in Florida where the parents can opt out of that book.
Does the parent have to name the books that are not?
Yes.
So I guess
now, if I'm a parent and I want my child to read that book, I should have a right to let my child read that book.
The way out of this that sort of satisfies people feel very passionately about this on both sides. Could you not have a system where a parent can say, hey, every book that my kid checks out of the library, it has to have my approval?
Why don't we
be sort of the fastest way to sort of resolve this problem and move on?
It's more or less like that.
Would you like me to, can I answer?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just take all of the books that have graphic sexual content. And I'm going to push back on you for a moment because you said this is normal, children having coming of age sexual experiences. It's not normal.
He didn't lose his virginity until he was in college.
I'm sorry, being anally by your adult family member is losing your virginity.
Okay.
Being anally by your adult family member is not normal childhood sexual experience.
I'm sorry,
and I think it's insulting. And I think it's insulting to say that any black parent with a gay child would be okay with their child reading that book.
You're being absolutely ridiculous and you're putting words in my mouth. That is not what I said.
Wait a minute.
If I am an African-American mother of a young gay man, I don't have a problem with him reading this book.
Always lying to me. Why? You lying so much. Why?
So
I think your point was that a book that speaks to a certain...
Why don't we put all of the books with graphic sexual content that are in the libraries behind like a curtain, like a special area. And then if parents want their children to be exposed to graphic sexual content, they can go into the raunchy naughty room, as she shared.
I know you're being
Is that a good idea?
Well, I know you're being facetious here, but I guarantee you that if you did something like that the kids would all flock to the naughty
They'd all flock to it.
And also, this is
half of the books the kids never even knew about.
And only a third of children in American public schools can read on grade level. They can't even read.
Yeah, what's the problem, Tiffany? They can't read them anyway.
So hilarious there. All the girls just having a laugh about it. Kids should be reading these pornographic books. Ha ha ha. Isn't it just hilarious? Ha ha ha. Well, no. I have had the immense displeasure of reading some excerpts from this book, Not All Boys Are Blue, in the research to this video, and it is extremely graphic, as in like gay adult film sort of graphic, but involving minors. And after reading it, I genuinely felt like I needed to have a shower. In fact, it's so graphic that I couldn't read it here because I'm almost certain that YouTube would demonetize this video. Plus, it would also just be extremely uncomfortable and weird for me to do. Trust me when I say, and you can research it yourself, that this is something that should never, ever be anywhere near minors. And the fact that these people are arguing that it should is absolutely criminal. And I'm not surprised that somebody tried to bring criminal charges against the superintendent of that school for having this book on his shelf, because somebody has to be held to account for this sort of thing, because this is grooming of children. And any adult who writes this sort of thing or who thinks that it's okay to show this to kids in a classroom is a sick, sick person. Let's just say it how it is. This stuff really pisses me off, to be honest. And if I were a parent and I found out that my kid were being exposed to this sort of stuff behind my back in school, I would be absolutely ropeable. So I'm glad that there are parents out there like Tiffany, like Mums for Liberty, who are standing up for this absolute monstrosity. So enough venting from me today, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to watch another one, right here. Next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.